Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of the Gold and Steel Show, where we discuss all things Vegas Golden Knights. Today, we're going to review the team's performance up to this point in the season, not quite a quarter of the way through the season. And we're also going to talk about the injury bug. The injury bug has reared its ugly head once again as a number of key players are out for the Golden Knights. I'm your host, JP. I'm here with my co-host, Ian, and let's tear right into this. Ian, you're going to do audio only again today, right? Just based on your commute.
That's right.
No worries. We can hear you okay. So you doing okay, bud?
Yeah. But busy life, as we were talking about before we went live, which is why apologies to those that are watching on YouTube, because you get to see just a little wavy line of my audio again. But,
all right.
but yeah, but no, all good, just busy.
Excellent. Well, glad to be doing this again with you as always, bud. And man, the injury bug strikes again. It kind of snuck up. You know, it was like Olofsson was out, and I'm thinking, oh, it's not too bad. You got one guy out, and then next thing you know, we're a few weeks into the season, month into the season, and there are, I think, 4 key players that are out right now. Stone is missing time. Not surprised by that. That's just come to be a regular thing for Stone, hasn't it? I think it's just assumed now that Stone just doesn't play full seasons. His health is delicate. We've sort of known this, but it reared its ugly head pretty early this year. Seems like it's kind of a day-to-day, week-to-week kind of thing right now. I think he's missed the last 3 or 4 games. But yeah, that's just par for the course, isn't it, with Mark Stone?
It certainly is. We talked about it a couple of years ago in terms of at what point is his health going to become a problem. What it always gives the Vegas Golden Knights, if we're going to turn a frown upside down and not start this podcast off too negatively, but is it gives Vegas cap space for every month that he's on LTIR. It's another couple of dollars in the piggy bank for trade deadline, which is helpful.
Yeah.
The real shame though is he was having such a good start. I mean, like he was in the top. I mean, he was the overall point leader in the NHL for a period of time. He was in the top 3 for a good chunk of time. It just shows that what an elite level player he is. And I think sometimes his injuries maybe mean that he's not in the same conversation with some of the top elite players. Your Austin Matthews and stuff for this world, fine. But when you look at point production, Stone is up there. But then when you look at recognition, it's not always quite in parallel, in my opinion anyway, in parallel with that. And I don't think the injuries help. Because I know when we looked before, like he hasn't played an 82-game season in forever. And obviously, unfortunately for Vegas, with his age and the problems he's had with his back, it's not exactly been... it's kind of high 60s is what he normally does.
Right.
So he misses a good chunk of time.
Yeah. Essentially, he's playing kind of half a season, 2/3 of a season, which is going to greatly affect his output, right? His production, but not terribly surprised. I think I was hoping he'd get a little further into the season before he got hurt, but it's just there's only so much you can do, right? There's a degree of chance involved there too. So, Stone missing some time. It sounds like it's not serious time, but the concern always is that it snowballs, right? It's like, okay, he's got his first nagging injury. He's going to come back and play as they usually do when he's healthy-ish, right? Which makes him more vulnerable to further injury. And, that whole snowball, that's just hockey. And Stone, of course, is just particularly vulnerable. Now, Olofsson, we know about. Olofsson's been out since early in the season, and his injury was a little more serious. The status on him right now is don't expect to see Olofsson back in the lineup at least for a few more weeks, probably. My understanding is, according to the coach, he's turned a bit of a corner, but what does that mean, right? That just means that he's on track. He's probably recovering at the pace that they hoped that he would. It's too bad, too, because Olofsson was off to a hot start. He was doing really well. So that's not news. Haig has been out for a little while, and then and that's not exactly news because he's been out now for a few weeks as well. And then, of course, the big news is Samsonov. Samsonov is now not dressed for 3 games, I believe, or maybe 4 games. The good news on that front is sounds like he's likely going to go on the road trip. So we may see him back on the bench. But because of him missing time, that means Akira Schmid got to see his first real time. The number 3 goalie got to see his first real time, and he did pretty well. So what's the threshold, Ian, do you think, in terms of, like, this team is deep enough, they're still doing fine, and we're going to evaluate their performance in a few minutes here, but what's kind of that threshold? I think I get nervous when they get 4 or 5 guys injured, because you go much deeper into the lineup than that, and you start to have one of those seasons like we had 2 or 3 seasons ago, right, where they missed the playoffs just because half the roster was banged up. So I didn't expect that this year. I felt like they had a long off season, right? First round elimination last year. So restful off season. I wasn't necessarily expecting, it to be one of those kind of seasons. But what's the threshold, right? I mean, like, another couple of major players injured, and there's going to be trouble, right? It's going to start to affect the team's performance in a serious way.
Yeah, they're definitely on the cusp of that. Normally, like in your roster, you've got 2 or 3, if you include a goalie, players that are scratched on a nightly basis. They're up with the main team. They're not in the AHL, but they're not playing. So you can probably handle 2 or 3 injuries and just rotate lines, and you're fine. Once you get to 4 or 5, you're then having to call people up, which is that's not season ending. It just means that you're relying on having a good enough farm system, a good enough pipeline of players that can step up. Like, the next man up mentality is fine, but only if you've got somebody who can do it.
Right.
If you're like, at the moment, Hill and Schmidt, that's fine as a tandem. We know that he played NHL minutes at Jersey, so that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
In the the forwards and the defensemen, it looks okay in terms of the performances are still there if we ignore Carolina. So I don't think there's a big drama yet. Stone's a big loss, but they will have expected him not to have played the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's things that are counteracting it at the moment, where you've got performances from people like Petch, people like Eichel. Eichel is having a great season points wise. Again, he's in the kind of he's either top 20 or top 25 in the NHL in terms of point production, which, again, you say, well, he should be, but he hasn't always been that kind of player.
Right.
He's definitely more two-way than I guess he used to be. But so I think they're fine as it stands. But say Eichel was to go and touch wood, I'm in my car, so there isn't any. But if you're listening, if you could put your hand on something wooden, that would be amazing. The Eichel doesn't get injured, because I think if you lose a star like that when you've got this level of injuries, that will hurt you.
Right.
The goalie situation's the worst. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what kills the season. If you lose players like that, because they're not easy to replace.
Right.
Like, say Eichel was to go down, there's a chance that Vegas can still make the playoffs without Eichel. Mm-hmm. It would be a lot harder, obviously, but they could do it. If Hill was to get injured and Samsonov was to get injured, and you're relying on like 2 backup goalies, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're in panic stations yet. I also think if you look at the rest of the league, pretty much everybody's gone through this already, which is surprising. And whether or not it's the preseason, because I saw a lot of chatter on other podcasts, which you're more than welcome to listen to as well as ours, of course. But I would listen to a lot of those before the season started, and they were talking about, is the preseason too long? Is there a problem in terms of having AHL players that are trying to make the NHL? They're obviously trying super hard, and then you've got NHLers that are maybe going a bit easy. Is the level of hits too high? All these kinds of conversations, because there were so many injuries. So
right.
I do think that at the beginning of a season, whether it's just rust or maybe muscle fatigue from the kind of getting ready for the season, they push themselves too hard in preseason, I don't know. But there's been a lot of injuries for all of the teams in the last couple of months since the season kicked off. So I don't think Vegas have got a problem. You just got to manage it. And I think when you look at the performance, it's a long season. Like, we're kind of forced to look at it in like buckets because of the way that we podcast and the way that we review. But realistically, they've played a handful of games. It's an 82 game season. You can go 4 or 5 game skid and be totally fine. Mm-hmm. It's the trends that you're looking for. And I think for me, even though there's been injuries and Stone is a huge loss, Vegas have rallied together. And people like Dorofeyev and players like that, that's where, and Barbashev as well, it comes into that mix. I just think there's enough depth that Vegas have these days that they can handle this.
Yeah, and a lot of that depth has been making appearances already. I mean, they've already got rookies that are kind of making their season debuts. You know, in the last game, Grigory Denisenko, who's on the Silver Knights, was recalled and made his first appearance in a Golden Knights sweater. So, that's my gut reaction. The first time I see a new guy who you're like, oh yeah, this guy hasn't made an appearance yet. Yeah, it always makes you're like, oh gosh, really? We're digging that deep into the depth chart. But it was also, they rotate these guys, right? And it's not just about a hierarchy where automatically, if there's room, so-and-so gets called up. It's not always how it works, right? Because Ron Bjerg was up and then got sent back down. Denisenko came up. So it's not linear in that way. But yeah, he did make an appearance. And, you got the guys that are sometimes in the press box as well, right? Like Schwint and Brisson, right? These guys are rotating in and out of the lineup. And I agree with you. Like, we're going to kind of just have an overview of the team's performance up to this point. We'll get to that in a minute. But I agree with you. If you look at the numbers, they seem like they're doing just fine. The bummer for me is the Stone, Eichel, Barbashev line. Those guys were insane. I mean, that's the bummer for me. I want to see those guys keep playing together. And one of the best first lines, if not the best first line in the NHL for the first few weeks of the season. Now, given it's early, but I think I was really hoping to see those three guys play together for an extended period of time. So hopefully Stone comes back and they're right back into those three on the same line again. But yeah, in the meantime, they're doing okay. I mean, in other news, before we get to reviewing the performance of the team, this is a couple of weeks back now, but what do you think of the Shea Theodore contract? Kind of caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting them to re-sign him quite this early, and the price was interesting too, right? We talked about this a little bit before we rolled, but what are your thoughts on the Shea Theodore contract? For those that don't know, they re-upped him just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a 7-year contract at, what was it, Ian? 7.4 per year, something like that, AAV?
Yep. So I believe it was 7.34 or 43, one of the ways round, but it was about 7.5, give or take, in terms of the cap hit per year. And you're right, it was for the full, I think it was 7 years that they did. And you think of his age, he's 29 now, so that obviously takes him through what you would assume through to the end of his career days. So. It was a good deal. I thought doing it now makes sense because it means any moves you make at the deadline, you know what you're playing with next year from his perspective anyway. Cap-wise, I didn't have a problem with it. He's basically on within a stone's throw of the same contract they gave Hanifin. It's pretty much the same contract. Hanifin's a couple of years younger, but it's predominantly the same number. So you would assume then their thought process is that when Pietrangelo retires, that these are the two that will become 1 and 2 in the defensive lineup. Right. As we were saying before we went on air, like I think the contract ends in 2032 or 2033, 1 or 2, and are Vegas going to be a cup contender in that year? Like, who knows? Like, I think you sign these guys up long, because if you don't, that's when the money will really ratchet up. And there's always ways to trade a contract or get out of a contract.
Right.
Or, if you're tanking, it's a useful contract to have in there. So
yeah,
it made sense to me. Theodore's been a fantastic defenseman. They missed him for chunks of last year. He's played really well this year so far. He's great offensively. He's a good defenseman as well. But he scores you points, which is important. I think the fact that he's going to finish his career more than likely as a Golden Knight is great for the fan base.
Yeah, he's essentially a franchise player. Other than a brief stint with the Anaheim Ducks,
that's right.
At the beginning of his career, I don't. I think he's pretty much been a career Golden Knight. And when he was with the Ducks, I'm he did see some NHL time, but I feel like maybe it was just a year, and he was kind of back and forth between the minors. And so, essentially a franchise player. So it's good news. I think the fan base is generally pretty happy about that. Nice to keep one of the misfits around, I'd say.
It's a really good number as well, JP. I mean, we looked at a couple of the contracts with players in a similar vein, and pretty much all of them begin with an 8. There's a couple that are very team friendly, and they're in the 6 region, or people that unluckily signed a long deal a couple of years ago.
And we were expecting 8 for Theodore, weren't we?
I thought 8. Yeah, I thought 8. And maybe they were thinking 8 too, which is why when they got to that number, they thought, yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah.
The number probably wouldn't have gone down. I mean, like, Shea Theodore is, an amazing defenseman. If he hit free agency, he'll get whatever he wants. So he might not get the term, to be fair.
Yeah,
but he'd get paid. So
there are plenty of teams that'll pay him.
Yeah, Vegas have to do something, and I think that's probably the trade-off. And it always makes me laugh because people whinge about contracts, and both sides in a negotiation are gonna want something, and the best result is where both sides win. In this instance, I think his salary is slightly less than he could have got on the open market, but I think the term is slightly more.
Right.
So I think he wouldn't have got a 7-year deal in the open market. Obviously, we'll never know, but that's my opinion. I think he probably would have been looking at his age, maybe 5 years, but that 5 years at a higher value than 7.4 million. So again, I think that works for everybody. It doesn't make the cap gymnastics any easier next year for Vegas. Of course it doesn't. But as we said on the very first podcast this season, when we were talking about Master Show, like, that's the world you guys are in now. Yeah. But it doesn't mean you don't sign your good players. So
Good move. And I think a little bit of what's going on there is there's a little bit of a hometown discount. Obviously, Theodore really likes living in Vegas, likes playing here. So a little bit of a hometown discount. I think too, people often don't consider the fact that in Nevada, we don't pay state tax. And on an amount of money that large compared to somewhere like California, for instance. So let's say if you play for the LA Kings or the Anaheim Ducks or the San Jose Sharks, California state tax is massive. So a large chunk of your paycheck goes to pay the state of California. And in Nevada, that is not a factor. You just don't pay state income tax here. Now, of course, everybody pays federal, but so that's a considerable discount as well in terms of take-home money. So Theodore would have to get paid more, for instance, if he were playing for a California-based team. He would have to be paid a higher salary in order to take home the same amount of money. And if you're playing in Canada, forget it, which is why there are a lot of players, the ones who are lucky enough to have no trade clauses, a lot of times they'll have Canadian markets on their contracts because the federal tax, the federal income tax rate in Canada is just absurd. I mean, you lose, at those amounts of money, you basically lose half your salary up there. So
well, for somebody in the UK, JP, it's probably better we don't talk taxes.
No, I know. In the UK, it's yeah, exactly. It's a similar rate to Canada, I would imagine, or somewhere in the ballpark.
It's painful.
Yeah, and that's not unusual, right? Like Scandinavia, there's a lot of places in the world, and that's a completely different conversation, right? Like some of that stuff goes to pay for things that.
No, but it's a really good point you raised, because I think it would be very easy for somebody to look at that and think it's a team-friendly deal. But actually, when you take all the taxes into account, he's probably no better off like taking an $8 million deal, like you say,
somewhere else.
I mean, argumentally, just to say Anaheim, just for giggles. But like, he's not actually going to be any better off.
Yeah,
you've got the upheaval of moving your family. I know that he's got a family. Like, you've got all the arrangements you have there,
right?
Home and everything. I get it, and I think it's a really, really good deal, and it's one less thing on the back office to-do list. In the regular season.
Just got that decor kind of cinched up, right? Like, he's going to have a strong decor, and they're skating 8 defensemen this year. They've got Korczak and Hutton as 7th and 8th, and those guys have been rotating in. And the decor is looking great. I mean, I guess we can segue into the team's performance. Speaking of Theodore, he got an assist last night against the Ducks, and the Golden Knights managed to win that game 3-2. It was a tight game, but they managed to close it out after a dismal performance prior to that at home. Their first home loss of the season in the game prior against the Hurricanes. They haven't really played a stinker all year. You could argue that the first game of that Eastern road trip against the Capitals was not great. It wasn't a stinker, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Yeah.
But the game against the Hurricanes was a stinker, or at least the first period was. They kind of woke up,
It was.
but that first period was absolutely their worst period of the season, and the Hurricanes made them pay, right? Like, they're a really good hockey team. So, you can't snooze against those guys. I think they were down 4-0 by the end of the first period, and Hill got pulled. And that was when Akira Schmid got to see some of his first action this season. It's a bit of an anomaly. You're going to have stinkers. I think overall, though, their performance has been reasonably good. I mean, if I'm just looking at the rough stats here, in the division, Vegas is first in the Pacific right now. And they've played 2 fewer games than the Kings. So that bodes well. I was thinking the Kings had games in hand, but they don't. It's the opposite. The Golden Knights have 2 games in hand on the Kings, who are in second, and they're behind by 1 point. So that's a good sign. And then you have Vancouver in third with 19 points. So Vegas has 22, Kings 21, Vancouver 19. Now, Vancouver has only played 15 games. So really, the Canucks are kind of nipping at the Golden Knights' heels more than the Kings are based on those numbers. And then Edmonton as well has 19 points. Calgary has 19 points. So the Pacific Division is still fairly tight right now. But Golden Knights we can't complain, right? They're first in the Pacific. Let's see, in terms of the conference, I mean, nobody's touching Winnipeg right now. Winnipeg is 15 and 2.
They are leagues ahead right now.
Yeah. So, but in the conference, it's Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Vegas. Vegas is in third in the conference, and then in the league, which doesn't matter as much, they're in sixth in the league.
Fifth or sixth, because there's a couple of Eastern teams up there as well.
The Devils Carolina are doing really well, and Florida is ahead of them. Carolina's they're tied. They're tied at 22 points apiece, but on the tiebreaker, Carolina is ahead of them in fifth. So I don't know. I've been reasonably pleased with their performance. There's certainly no shortage of offense to my eye, Ian. I don't know what you think. I feel like their lapses right now are defensive, and that's not just the decor. It's only 5 skaters out there, right? So I think sometimes we forget like all 5 guys are playing defense. So I feel like defensively, they're not gelling as well as they will with a little more time. It's still good, but it's harder. It's harder to fix offense when you don't have offense. That's a harder problem to solve. I feel like tightening up your defense is an easier fix, and so I'm encouraged in that regard. But you're the numbers guy. Like, how do you feel about the numbers? The numbers so far, stats.
The numbers guy, I like that. So there's probably five areas I'm going to touch on quickly. So firstly is you're right with the goals. So as it stands, Vegas have scored 66 goals. And you're right, Vancouver are probably the next closest team in the division if they capitalize on their games in hand. If they don't, obviously, they'll stay behind LA. But if they do, they'll leapfrog LA and get pretty close to Vegas's current point total. Right. But interestingly, Vancouver have scored 47 goals. So that's nearly 20 goals less. 19 goals less than the Vegas Golden Knights.
That's interesting.
Now, okay, you could say, well, they've played less games, but only 2.
Yeah.
I don't know how many goals. 1. I don't know how many goals they're expecting to score in this one game they've got in hand. But my guess is it's not going to be 19. So
major difference in goal differential.
Massive difference. And if you look at goals across the whole league, there's only a handful of teams that have got as many goals as Vegas have got. It shows that offense, right? Next, you've got the home form. The home form's been amazing. So you're 8-1-0 at home, which is just nuts. Away is where everything goes a little bit Pete Tong, 2-3-2. Not great. Yeah. And partly we know that's the Eastern trip is hurting that as well, because obviously the Eastern road trip earlier in the season was a bit of a blowout.
Yeah.
But last 10, 7-1's pretty good. So the form, in my opinion, is good. The Carolina game was 100% a stinker. It happens. So I'm going to do negative very quickly now, and then 2 positive points to finish. So negative point at the moment, and we obviously brought it up last time, he hasn't got any better. It is Aiden Hill, which is, I don't like saying it because he's got a career 908 save percentage, and that's across 147 games, right? So that's not a flash in the pan. This guy's a NHL starting top quality goalie. But this season, okay, his wins are good. He's won 7 of his 11 games he's played, but he's got an 879 save percentage. Now, yes, it's small numbers, but still, that's a massive contrast. And when you then compare the fact that we were talking about Samsonov being injured and Schmidt coming in, I'm not sure the defense is playing worse. I think Hill is playing worse, which makes the defense look like they're worse because they're just not getting. Now, we haven't given up that many more goals than the people around us. I think it's 47 or something around that mark. And that's pretty close to what Vancouver have given up. But I think when you've got a goal that's in poor form, it's like, do you give up the goal that cost you the game?
Right.
So it's one goal that can cost you 2 points rather than like we saw with Carolina where he absolutely cacked the bed and he let go of 4 in the first period. So Hill needs to sort himself out. The 2 positives though, first one is Thomas Hertl in the power play looks pretty good. And Hertl's form is starting to improve, which is nice to see. I think he'll be a really big player for Vegas this year. We just haven't quite seen it yet. And then the last point is the people that have stepped up big time. And there's 2 of them. The first one is Shea Theodore. We talked about him earlier. He's been a massive contribution in terms of points. And Pietrangelo, to be fair, actually has been pretty good as well. Far more higher than normal. And it's Brett Howden. Like, he is, like, for somebody who was always touted originally as being this, like, will he break into top 6 forward? And then it kind of looked like he was never going to make it. And he was always going to be bottom kind of 6. But this season, like, he's putting up some really good numbers. And for a guy who's on a very, very team-friendly deal, he is a welcome addition to the points column.
Howden is absolutely on a roll right now. And I'll throw in one more name. Dorofeev is,
yes.
If he keeps, I mean, look, in terms of making up for Marchessault in the aggregate, it's happening right now. Dorofeev, I think, is on, I want to say he's on 13 goals or something like that. It's an absurd pace. Now, maybe he's going to level out, but he does have a scoring touch. I mean, if that guy keeps it up, he's going to score 40 goals this year, which puts him in an elite club. Like, there aren't a lot of guys in the league that have that kind of production. So he's a very promising player. We've always thought he was promising, but he's doing it this year. So no, there's a lot of things to be excited about. And, as long as the injury thing doesn't spiral any further than it is right now, like, likely Samsonov's probably back in the lineup. We're probably going to see Stone and Haig back in the next week or 2 each. So if they can hang on, I think they'll be fine. Definitely almost not quite a quarter into the season, I'd say there's a lot to be happy about. Real quick, Ian, I know I'm conscious of time. I know you've got to get to your next scheduled items for the day here, but I want to get your thoughts real fast. The Golden Knights play Utah tomorrow or tonight, probably by the time our listeners are hearing this. So just real quick, what's your take on Utah and how they're doing so far with this new team, new market, and then we'll wrap it up. You got any quick thoughts? Just a few sentences on Utah. What are they're doing better than they were as the Coyotes, right? But they're still right kind of where the Coyotes were as well. Like, they're right now, they're kind of a middle of the pack team, right? Like,
well, they're doing better than the Predators.
That's true.
That's guaranteed. So, in the Central Division, they're no longer the worst team in there. And they weren't last year, to be fair. Obviously, Chicago quite happily took that spot. They started really strong. I think they've got a lot of good young players. It looks like the owner knows what he's doing, right? He's trying to build this kind of culture, this fan base up who didn't have a lot of time to prepare. So, I think given what they've done, I mean, you could compare them to Vegas and Seattle in terms of what they've created. But like, Vegas and Seattle had years to market their teams before they arrived. Utah had like 2 months or whatever it was,
Right.
like a short period of time anyway. I think it was about 2 months, but it was pretty short in hockey terms.
Yeah.
They've got the jerseys. I really like them. I love the colors. I hope they keep the color scheme, even though they're obviously going to change the name. I would presume to whatever Ice Grizzlies or whatever the hell they decide to go with, like whatever
Ice Grizzlies.
The stadium obviously was already there, or the arena was already there because of the Jazz. But I think they've done a really good job so far, and they look like a serious hockey team, right? And that's you got to know the biggest difference is they look like a serious hockey team that actually has a future. Whereas Arizona looked like a car crash that just needed to, like the sort of thing that you look at and you go, that just needs to be put down.
Totally.
Like there's no positive, there's no saving this now. It just needed to be put down. So, I think they've done, the right stuff so far. The fan base, no doubt, after the first couple of games, thought they were going to win the Stanley Cup. They're probably chilled out a bit now. But it's a good start. I mean, like if you're a Utah fan, you're enjoying going to games. You're having a good time. You're winning some, you're losing some. You've got some great talent. I mean, there's some amazing players there.
Oh yeah.
But I just think they are still a team that is in the midst of a rebuild. Yeah. And so, I think they're probably on where they should be.
Right. Yeah. It's a positive cultural shift. And I think that new culture is great. It's great for the franchise. It's great for Salt Lake City and Utah, and it's great for the league. Yeah. And like you said, whether they squeeze into the playoffs this year, it's a process. They just started it. But definitely, I agree with you. Promising things, and they've sort of settled into more where we would have expected them to be, based on their roster. But, well, I know, Ian, you got to get to your next thing, but it's great, as always, chatting with you, and some encouraging things from the Golden Knights. We'll see how they do against Utah tonight, playing away for the first time in their arena. And folks, we'll be back with you here in another couple of weeks. If you have any questions or thoughts or things you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to us on our Twitter/X profile or on our website. We'll see you soon. Take it easy. Stay safe. Happy holidays. And see you in a couple of weeks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.